Okay, Tip Tap Dancer wants to know if using historical match data for analysis, is it best to ignore seasons 2019 and 20?
That's probably too long a period of time. I would definitely do two different types of analyses, one that included the entire data set that you have and one that took out December 2020 through to March 2021, which is, so we went into lockdown the first time in March 2020, football ground to a halt, if you remember, when everybody was scrambling around for a few Bulgarian and Romanian games to bet on through June and July, and then it just stopped. And then the government and everyone came to an agreement that football could start again behind closed doors in December 2020. That period between December 2020 and March 2021 is super weird in terms of action periods, goals, cards, corners. And I do, when I look through historical data, I do it twice. I have a historical data set that includes those games, and I have a historical data set that removes every game up until March the 31st, 2021.
Okay, and the same guy, Tip Tap Dancer, how do you find value in football match odds?
So I tend to target markets outside of the match odds markets, the 1x2 markets. I like looking at markets that do not have an exchange market or don't have a lot of liquidity in the exchange markets, because they tend to be a little bit easier to profit from. I don't think I've got any edge on Premiership match odds markets because they're so efficient on the exchange. But if I was to look at match odds, I would start with the XG, the expected goals for the home team and the expected goals for the away team. You can do this two different ways. You can look, you could come up with some sort of data set, historical prediction, regression curve, fancy probability. But if you don't want to do any of that, just go and steal it from the spreads. Go to the spread sites and open up their buy and sell line and go the midpoint for the home and away team. So you've got your XG for both teams, and then you can plug these into columns in Excel. And if you go equals Poisson.dist bracket, that team XG, comma, 0, comma, false bracket, if you type that in, it will return a number between 0 and 1 that is the probability of that team getting 0 goals. This is a very, very simple goal prediction methodology. There are more complex ones out there, but I'm just giving a simple one. Okay, so start with your team XG equals Poisson.dist bracket that team XG, comma, 0, comma, false. You've got that equation. You can do it for the away team, but instead of a 0, put a 1 in and multiply those two together. And that's the probability of 0-1. You've got your 0-1 scoreline. Come up with 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, all the way to 20-0, and then go 1-1, 2-1, 2-1, 3-1, 4-1. Do every permutation up until 2020. You've got your correct score market. And then you can just add up all the home wins, add up all the away wins, add up all the draws. You've got your match odds for the game, and you can go out into the market and you can look at where is completely different to yours. But if you do that, you have to bear in mind that doesn't mean that you're right. There could be other things going on, such as, you know, a lot of games have a big 0-0 bias, but do stick with that. And then over here, take a snapshot or a timestamp of the market and monitor all of the games and look for steamers. Watch for signal within the noise. If you can find those teams that are steaming in, and you've got them over here where you priced them up yourself, your tissues, and you can combine those together, and you find the team that's steaming in the most, as well as the team that is a big discrepancy between you and the markets, and go and bet on those teams. Don't just bet on the one though, stick them into multiples. If you stick 7 teams into multiples, what happens there? If you got one wrong, hopefully you've got the other 6 right, and it sort of allows you to recover from any missed assumptions in the market, any mistakes, something like that.
Okay, this is from, I assume it's FOG, but it spells fog, so we'll call it fog, at Fog Blog. What makes you so successful at golf betting, Is there a lot of recreational money in the markets, a lot of bad modelers, soft early markets, or your data algorithms are just better?
In terms of the markets, it's so lazy some of the times, because if you have a look at any PGA or DP World Tour event when the market goes up on a Monday morning. In fact, it was the first Live London event that I was laughing my head off at this. Every bookmaker on Odds Checker was exactly the same price for every single golfer in the Live London. Nobody was sticking their neck out. One odds compiler had bothered to do some work. He'd gone up. I mean, I understand the theory that you'd never want to be the first one up to market with your prices. You don't even want to be second. You want to be third. But everyone just copied him. And where the bookmakers go up, it's not exact, but there's a lot of copying and matching and shaping on the exchanges around about what the bookmakers have done. So our model, people do this differently. We have a three-way combination hybrid model that's legally stealing a lot of information that's already out there, and we're bringing it in, whereas a lot of people just use the one. And this isn't a precision game, you understand. We are painting a picture. We are an artist that's trying to paint an incomplete picture with incomplete information. All we're trying to do is put together as much of the jigsaw puzzle as we can, knowing that we can never put the last piece down. So the three ways that we do it, we first of all come up with the probability of finishing exactly first to exactly 12th, because the most amount of each way places I think we've seen is 12. We're going to have to do 13 one day, I'm sure. And we do this from a range of different sources with a range of different confidence. You can do it yourself. You can go out and look at data golf. You can look at the top price in the market with 0% markup. You can look at the exchange prices if there's liquidity there, although there won't be on the places. There's various different barometers and benchmarks you can steal from if needed. And you should always actually be bringing the data in, even if you're not using it, just to see if you're wildly off, or you can use that to bet on. The second thing is that we're filtering big EV options out of our short lists by building up a metrics graph that takes into account greens and regulations, scrambling, and all these different metrics that are relevant to that particular course. To work out what metric is relevant to a particular course, we use Fantasy Labs, and you can go over there and you can look at trending data for loads of different golf tournaments in the past, and you can work out which is the metric that is most likely to trend data that would have suggested that a golfer would perform better than suggested by his first tee price. So we've got our metrics graph to filter out the EV options. And then thirdly, we are tracking smart money. So we have a golf tracker at bookiebashing.net where everyone's ranked by EV. And what we see is that when syndication comes in, when smart money and the syndicates come in and start picking their golfers, the golfers they pick rise up in EV on our tracker. And so we don't underestimate the power and the knowledge that these steamers and these syndicators have. And so we can kind of legally steal that information. And so it's the best of all three worlds. It's the best of pricing it up ourselves and looking at the markets. It's the best of these metrics graphs that allow to filter someone out. If he's really poor at driving distance and you need to be long on this course, we're not going to be picking that guy. And also we're jumping on the back of syndicated and smart money.
Okay, now Jeevan, that Jeeves Odds, have you considered offering your pricing tools stroke skills as a business-to-business service? There have been some huge success stories in recent history: Bannock, Mustard, Lizard, Deck Prism, etc.
That very good question, and I have not considered a sort of business-to-business relationship, because we have always focused on redressing the balance on the punter's side. The last thing we want to do is sort of bring in a lot of the intelligence that we have into the bookmakers' side to allow them to change what they're doing. Because I think a lot of what we're doing something new and something different that's completely uncontaminated from the way that the bookmaker does it. Now, that has pros and cons. The cons are maybe we're missing a trick somewhere where all the bookies have this amazing technique that they factor into their models that would be really useful for us, but we simply don't know about it because we're doing this ourselves from the recreational punter side of the fence. But it also means that we're not corrupted by bad ideas and old school ways of doing things. And we perhaps have come up with methodologies that the bookmakers themselves don't have in their models. And I very much would love to keep that on the punter side of the fence rather than bookmaker side of the fence, because we are, as I say, it's a lot more fun redressing the balance on our side.
Okay, now Brett Dwyer wants to this. Brett Dwyer 1. Does Bookie Bash have strategies for pari-mutuel pools, and are you active in international markets like Australia, USA, and Hong Kong?
Unfortunately not. I don't really have anything for that. We do have someone, one of our BB team members is based in America and has been scouting out different American markets for opportunities, but pari-mutuel racing, I have to just say, put my hands up, no, we got nothing.
Okay, Richard at Gubbed. How many staff do you have at Bookie Bash in Towers?
We have me, who mostly does identification, research and development and content, with Duncan, who mostly does administration and dealing with members. We have an IT team of 2, soon to be 3. Someone's in charge of collecting coupons from the shops. That's their exact role, and OCRing them and getting them imported into our coupon tracker. We have a team of 3 around the world in BB team who set up our tools every morning or the night before, and they merge the databases of synonyms and check on scrapers and set golf tournaments up and produce the metrics graphs and look for games that need manual intervention, and they enter bets onto our trackers and they log and update all of our records. We have somebody that does our marketing to ensure that we've got a steady customer base, because we are in a business where there is natural decay to a community. And my wife sometimes does the moderation on Discord because she just loves doing that.
Stu Wareham at Stu Lisa. In horse racing, what variables does your model concentrate on?
So we deliberately stay away from looking at things like form, age, and all of these different variables that the Racing Post would throw down our throat to say that it would be possible to gain an edge looking at them. I'm not saying that people don't. In fact, the very knowledgeable horse racing punters out there, the Quentin Franks, the Neil Channings, of course, they've got a really, really good edge with the knowledge that they've got. Applying those variables to horse racing is not something that we do. We come purely at this from the regression analysis I spoke about during the Betting People interview. This is taking a horse based purely on the composition of the race and the price of the horse, and estimating the probability of that horse finishing 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, based on looking backwards to 2 million horses. I said 2 million horses to 2020. I meant 2 million horses to the year 2000. I also said I used time form and I meant pro form. So 2 million horses from pro form back to 2000 helps us identify the value bets on the horse racing tracker. And it sounds a bit simple to work, but it's the number 1 edge we really have at bookie bashing, and it seems to serve us quite well.